Welcome back to another We Power podcast, another We Power broadcast. And you already know we've got another special, exciting show. And if you don't know by now, the theme of the We Power podcast is just getting you to pay attention to the various opportunities that are out there for everybody. Not every opportunity is for everybody, but there is an opportunity for somebody. There is an opportunity for you. And so the theme of our show simply, we just talk about being able to identify what works for you. I'm your host, P. Anthony, aka the Underground Professor. And my hope throughout the series of our shows is that you will hear something by one of our guests as they talk about their journey and being able to identify what works for them, that it would spark something in you to get you to take action. Everybody, God has blessed everybody with something. And you know, we here at We Power, we believe that one person's noble passion can be the solution to another person's problem. So our goal is simply to expose the passions in people so that we may expose solutions to our community. We have a special guest in the studio today, near and dear to my heart. We have a professional, well-renowned author, born in England, but raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. She is a very bright, intelligent young lady, and I've prophetically spoken to her life when she was young, saying she would be that lady to write them checks with a whole lot of zeros. And that is soon to come to pass. But we have in our studio today the author of her second and latest book, The Powder Room Confessions, a collection of confessions, poetry, and ruminations. Tiera Haley, welcome to the We Power podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're doing today, where you're going, and then we'll jump into your book.
Yeah, so as you said, born in Ascot, England, raised right here in Naptown, Indianapolis. I have been writing probably for 15 years. Released my first book in 2020 at the heart of the pandemic. Released my second book, obviously, just this past month, Powder Room Confessions, and I have more to come. Hopefully, my next step is to turn some of my publications into plays, movies. I'm open to everything.
All right. That is excellent. Now, first and foremost, as we talk about being able to identify what works for you, there's so many opportunities, there's so many options out there. How were you able to identify that writing was something that really worked for you?
That's a good question. Someone once said to me before that your gifts will always make room for you. And writing was something that literally made room for me. It found me. It just came natural. Like I said, I've been writing for many years. I've always written short stories, poems. I used to even take songs I would hear and change around the lyrics. So it's just something that came natural to me, and I followed it. I chased it, and met up with what I felt like my gift and my calling was.
Okay. Now, it's one thing to be able to identify what works for you, but it's a whole nother level to actually take action and put yourself out there on, let's say, Front Street or Main Street, if you will. What, because I was surprised when I saw that you published your first book. I was surprised. I was like, what? How could she do it before me? But you did it. And so it's one thing to be able to identify it, but a lot of people get stuck in being able to take that next step and actually take action. Talk to us about that journey that allowed you to say, hey, I'm going to do this?
Really, it was literally just that, saying, I may not have all my ducks in the row. I'm going to take what I have and run and jump. So there's never going to be, if you keep saying, which is a mistake I made years before my first publication, like, I'm going to wait until this is like that, or wait until I feel this way, you may never do it. So it was really me just kind of throwing myself, so to say, off the cliff and seeing, where I land, and I'm happy with the outcome.
Okay, that's good. And I'm a little, I feel like I'm close to you, and I never saw this coming. So how did you identify what steps that you needed to take, where you wanted to go? Again, it's one thing to identify it. It's another thing to actually write it. And then how did you go through the process of being able to say, okay, I'm going to publish this, and this is how I'm going to get it done?
So what people may not believe, any writing I've done, I start off writing it in my Apple Notes. If you have an iPhone, that feature on your phone that says Notes, I would start off, ideas will come to me in any time of day. I can wake up at 2 a.m. I can be at work. I can be anywhere. So I would jot little things down in no particular order. It could just be a word or a sentence or something I saw that inspired me or thought. And I would eventually, compile those. It kind of would pull the story or poem would always kind of pull itself together.
Okay. So how do you go from your Apple Notes to an actual book? What made you think? What gave you the audacity to think that you could take it from Apple Notes to a published book?
I feel like I'm someone who's just kind of always had the audacity. I've always had that why not mindset, why not me? And like I said, before I had the courage to actually share my writings and publish them, I've always written stories, whether it be comical, more serious, just anything. And I'm like, I'd be reading it and I would show maybe 3 or 4 people. And it would be like, you need to share this. Or, so it was always me being kind of like, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I want to. But it was like, you know what? I do need to start sharing this stuff. These are some decent stories, not like, hyping myself up there. But I knew that, I had that gift of storytelling. I see the world a certain way. I see situations a certain way. And that's what inspires my writing style.
Okay. So. Do you find writing to be therapeutic?
Absolutely. That's always been. I mean, I've never thrown away any diary or journal. I have every journal I have ever written in, and that's always just been a form of therapy and release for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, we are getting ready to jump into it, and first and foremost, we're going to talk about what you have on the front of the book. A collection of confessions, poetry, and ruminations. Confessions. Where did the idea for confessions come from?
That came from just the fact that I've always been kind of a private person, and any kind of thought I would have, something I would notice in the world or in my life or in family and friends' life, I would kind of just keep it in my mind or journal about it. This book basically to me felt like opening up my diaries and journals and sharing them. So confessions to me just made me think of like secrecy being revealed, and that's how I felt with the book. So that's why I chose that particular title.
Whoa, wait a minute. So you got real people in the book?
I'm not going to say. I'll say I have real situations. I'm not putting nobody on blast. I'm not putting nobody out there. Majority, and I had people texting and comment on my Facebook talking about, please don't have my confessions in there. So disclaimer, majority of the stuff in the book is based around Tiera Haley's experience. A lot of it is things that I have witnessed, but most of it is things that I've witnessed, but I've also experienced. So there's no crazy confessions. And I've said that the word confessions really is light, because I'm not even really confessing anything on myself, nothing deep, no scandalous tea being spilled, but it's just like confessions like, hey, this is kind of something that I've always thought about and never really shared, or this is the way that I thought about this particular topic, or this is something I've experienced and never really, stuff like that.
Awesome. The next after confessions is poetry. So how do you go from confessions into poetry?
I feel like they tie into each other. They're kind of one and the same. I've always kind of turned anything into poetry. Any experience I've had, that's how I healed from it. That's how I expressed it or released it. So a lot of the poetry is stemmed from those life experiences and those quote unquote confessions. So it's the same thing.
So you're saying you're able to take the life experiences that you bring out in confessions, and from that you're able to wrap poetry around. Inspired a lot of the poems. Okay, now this last word, ruminations. First and foremost, explain to our listening audience, define what that word means.
Ruminations very simply just means deep thought, which I do a lot of deep thinking. I've had friends tell me you think too much and too deep about everything. So rumination is just going deep into thought.
And so when we open the pages of the book, we're prepared to walk through your life experiences, through your confessions. We're able to hear how you were able to wrap the poetry that was inspired by the confessions. And then you were able to take the combination of those two into deep thought.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see what that looks like. But first, you have a dedication. You open the page to the first page 1, and you have a dedication to Tessa Kim Jones Jackson. You want to express why Tessa?
Tessa was my cousin. We were very close. We were like sisters almost, and we both were writers. We were both poets. She lived in West Virginia, I grew up there for a couple years, and then obviously I lived here. So we would always swap poetry and passages with each other. And she died in 2020, March of 2020. And the year that she died, that following month, she was supposed to release her poetry book, April of 2020.
Oh, so she was a writer as well.
She was also a writer, absolutely. And she was drafting her book. And so I feel like I did this kind of for both of us. She never lived to be able to release her work, her poetry. And like I said, she was a fellow poet as well. So dedicated it to her.
Awesome. No, I love the breakdown of the book. You got your confessions, then you got where you go and give your own particular take on the confessions. When you're giving your take, what are you reflecting?
I do have on some of them, I have a passage called Tiera's Takes. That is kind of me just making sure that, it's kind of me just breaking it down, making sure that the reader is digesting it in the way that I intended. Some of them I'm giving kind of like a little backstory behind what inspired that passage. So that's what inspired Tiera's Takes.
Okay, let's jump into it. Nobody ever told me about this sign around my neck, alerting broken spirits that I am a place for rest, instructing them to come in and drink of my nectar until they are content and full enough for the rest of their journey. The title of this chapter is Broken Vessel, a Beautiful Sacrifice. Brittany's tale. Talk to us about it.
So that is from a conversation I had with a young lady probably, maybe 17 years ago. And Brittany is really her name. I won't say last name, but Brittany. And she's a friend of mine. And we used to just swap stories about what we were going through with these boys. And she kind of made a comment like that. She was like, she felt like a broken vessel. She would just kind of feel like she was giving her all, and getting nothing in return. And I know a lot of women can relate to that. So I just pulled from that conversation and a few other experiences and conversations I've had since then, but it was stemmed, it's named after her because it was stemmed from that particular conversation and turned it into that poem.
Love and loyalty are not parasites. Let's go deep with that.
So that is from the Tiera's take of Broken Vessel. Love and loyalty are not parasites. So everyone who knows anything about a parasite, what does a parasite do? It latches onto you and it sucks the life out of you until you ultimately, get extremely sick or die. So a lot of people talk about, the saying, I love someone to death, but really you just loving them to your death. Like it's not love, they're just taking everything out of you. Ride or die, loyalty. A lot of times you're loyal to the wrong thing, to the wrong people, and you are feeling like you're being 10 toes down. You feel like you're doing the right thing, but it's just killing you, and that's something you have to let go because it's basically acting to a parasite. So that's what inspired that.
So you're saying it shouldn't suck the life from you. You
should feed into each other. Yeah, well, they're not even just romantic relationships. I mean, friendships, partnerships, family. Nothing should feel like it is sucking the life out of you. You know what I mean? No type of loyalty or love does that. And a lot of people get that confused. And I've got it confused before too, so that's why I can't.
I kneel to the ground and drop my flag down in the sands of strong black man/woman. This strong black man/woman island. What is that? Talk to us about that.
Strong black man/woman island. So that is a metaphor, obviously. A lot of people, specifically in our community, have this huge stigma of being a strong black man or strong black woman, and it's like that starts to feel exhausting. A lot of times, really, we have no other choice but to be that. But that was written from the viewpoint of knowing what it's like to get to that point where you're like, I'm tired of being the strong black man, strong black woman. But when the readers go to the end, you'll see kind of like some inspiration, about, kind of what is in our roots that even puts us in that position. But that's written also from the viewpoint of kind of just being real about what it feels like to have to carry that through life.
Wow. Okay. I think this is probably one of the favorite chapters. Just the title alone. Who shot you?
Who shot you? Yes.
You ask, smirking down at me, a grin on your face as you reload the clip. Who shot you? Who shot you? So talk to us about that. You're not talking in a literal sense as somebody really shooting you, but what's the correlation with the weapon and the gun shooting versus what you have written in the pages of this book?
Yeah, so Who Shot You? There's a Tiera's take on that as well. I did a breakdown of it in the book. So I had done a workshop years ago where we were to write kind of like metaphors for, like a poetry workshop, metaphors for different topics. We were given, mine was like heartbreak and betrayal. So I had to go deep and think about when I felt like that before. And it literally, just from my recollection, it can feel like being shot plain blank by someone. Who shot you, obviously, like you said, it's a metaphor. But betrayal, and whether it be romantic or friendship or whatever, for man or woman, it feels that, that painful, that sting, that shock, the same as if you were to be shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm talking.
Let's tap into another rumination.
Sure.
When you're in pain, they all seem the same. What does that mean?
When you're in pain, they all seem the same. That is speaking to men and women, because that stemmed also from several conversations I've had I've been guilty of it too before, which I mentioned. But when you are going through, and just for the example sake, I use romantic relationships, but I always say this can apply to anything. But if you are going through, say, a breakup or a falling out with someone, mainly women, but men are guilty of it too, you lose hope that there is anyone that has loyalty or good qualities about themselves, and you just start to find yourself, oh, they're all the same, or all these dudes out here are this, or there's all these generalizations people always make. It messes up your trust, it messes with your mind. It's almost like you're traumatized, and because you are in pain, so you just don't trust anybody. You think they're all the same. So that was me writing from that viewpoint and kind of speaking to that thought process. Like, I know it feels like that in the moment, but it's not the case.
So how do you overcome that? How do you get through that?
Really, it takes, people do a lot of kind of jumping from relationship to relationship or situation to situation, and it sounds cliche, but really you do have to take the time to heal and sit with yourself, because you need to figure out what it was that drew you to that particular person or situation, and heal that in you so that you don't have the same person or situation over and over again. Work on self-love, of course, and just build yourself back up and build up your mind. And
I understand the shield you have to put up when you're in the street, the person who you often must pretend to be. I only hope you feel safe enough not to pretend with me. This is from the chapter, A Love Letter to Our Black Kings.
Yes.
A love letter to our Black Kings. What inspired that?
A lot of male bashing had been going on the past couple years. I can take accountability, so I have been guilty before of male bashing. I was like, you know what? That's not cool. It's not fair. I know that, there's a lot of losers out there, but we have a lot of kings out there too. I was raised by a phenomenal man. I've been around them. I've met a lot of them. There's Black kings. So I feel like they do not get enough love. They get a lot of, y'all need to do this better, or y'all aren't doing this enough. Or being made to feel kind of like objects that are just there to, just provide and there to deal with the projections of hurt women, and kind of just take the brood of that. And I thought that, that's not cool. We wouldn't like that as women. We want to hear that kind of praise and respect and admiration. And I was like, well, let's shout out the Black kings. There are, like I said, not every man is a king, but there are a lot out there. So it was a love letter to them, to let them know we see you. This is how we revere you and think of you.
That's good stuff. The Powder Room Confessions by Tiera Haley. There's some awesome chapters in this book. Awesome job. Great read. I'm just going to shout out a couple more chapters. Tiffany's Tale. We did Who Shot You? Confessions. Even the Love of a Dog. That sounds like it's very good. Kiss of Dawn. A Flower's Faith. And then A Love Letter to Our Black Kings. An awesome book. I would encourage each and every person out there that's listening to get your copy. And speaking of that, Tiera, tell them how they can find you and where they can get a copy of this fabulous book.
Yep, so my book is available on Amazon. If you type in, I always encourage everyone to just go and type my first and last name, Tiera, Tiera Haley, Haley. That'll pull up both of my current publications. You can find me on Facebook under Tiera, and I do have a page specifically for my writings. Christine Writes, CHRISTINE space WRITES.
And we'll drop all of that in the comments, and so you guys can follow. And we want you to go out and support. We want to take and push this book, The Powder Room Confessions, to Amazon's #1 best seller.
Amen.
Let's get it done.
Yes.
As we wrap up, Tiera, any shout outs, anybody you want to acknowledge?
Absolutely. I'll start off with some of my family that helped me during this journey. My sister Iris Moore, she literally came in and saved the day when I was having a meltdown when I was having a lot of issues with the production of this book and everything. Shout out to her. My cousin Tanisha Triplet for her advice. She is a marketing mogul. She's a big time businesswoman in the city as well.
Awesome.
She's also published a book. She has Tutus by TT, her business. She's an entrepreneur. Shout out Paris Ladon, Mouse P, Nate Russ,
Yes.
Jade Fincher. Those are some up and coming, aspiring creatives in Indianapolis. I'm blown away by what the city is doing right now. We have some amazing talent right here in Indianapolis. So let's do it. Let's keep pushing. I love all of y'all.
All right. What another awesome show. Somebody that was able to identify what works for them. And not only that, step up to the next level to take action. She's published 2 books. We talked about the Powder Room Confessions. You want to drop the title and just a brief synopsis of what the first book was about?
My first book was called My Hormones Hate My Husband. That was actually inspired by several women's experiences, including my own, with kind of aging and your hormones changing and your body changing and feeling like you are losing your mind. And like I said, I deal with a lot of stuff through turn it into a story. This particular one, I turned it into a comical story because I was like, hey, I have to make light of this. And it was kind of funny to me when I thought about it. So I took, in this particular instance, I took the symptoms of severe PMS and I personified them. And it made it like it's a woman that follows the main character around that only she can see. And makes her feel like she's crazy. But like I said, it's a pretty good story. I had a lot of success with that first run. Still obviously available on Amazon. But yeah, My Hormones Hate My Husband was my first ever publication.
Awesome. My Hormones Hate My Husband. Look up Tiera Haley on Amazon and get both of the books. Look up Tiera Haley on Amazon and purchase her book. We want to thank you for tuning in to the We Power podcast, the We Power broadcast. As always, we want to thank our sponsors, Victories Insurance Agency, LLC. Reach out and contact Victoria Moore. You'll be able to find her information in the comments. Life Financial Solutions, David E. Fennell, and Freebirds General Contracting Services. Contact Reggie Williams, Freebird General Contracting Services. We want to thank our sponsors, and we want to thank you for tuning in to the We Power podcast, the We Power broadcast. I am your host, P. Anthony, a.k.a. the Underground Professor.